feel bad. All of our videos this week are GW related. And then it just leans into.
Does anything else matter?
Just leans into the shill thing a lot.
Well, we are shills, and
that's true.
And
I
would make a video about another game if it mattered, but it doesn't.
Know thyself. It matters, Jesus Christ.
We're just having fun, guys.
Oh, he's trying to kill me.
Come on, we're just having fun here. Everything matters.
Dear reader, dear Lords of War. From reader.
Got a dear, yeah.
I'm just going to do the TLDR.
This is one of our Patreon.
It was quite the essay.
Thank you for that.
Which is awesome. It was really well thought out. He gave a really detailed talk, but basically he sums up his point and his argument and his question at the very end, which is Games Workshop's approach to retiring models likely to bite them in the arse in expected or unexpected ways?
No, it definitely does. As much as I joke, I like to poke fun at it a little bit. No, of course, there's damage is done. You're kind of look, people, when you buy and paint or collect anything, it's like there's an emotional attachment. It's like beloved. It literally doesn't matter what it is. We could be talking about coins or anything, or just that thing that you got excited about and you bought it and you want to enjoy it. So. I do think that that there is damage, and it is factored into their giant board that factors everything in. I don't know how to describe that, but you lose people for sure. Sometimes you lose them forever. Sometimes for a short time, but. I just don't know, other than the cold business decision and I don't really know how other way. I mean, I would say they try and do things like made orders and bringing models back in from the vault here and there. It's usually pretty successful.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can keep a catalog at just ever growing catalog forever. Without there's one way they could do it, but they're not going to do it, which would be the STL route, or if you enabled people to make their own, print their own, or buy a license or print your own. Maybe that's a future. Maybe they'll have an extended catalog only that's like that. But probably not.
Yeah, I'm not psychic, but if I was, I would not be able to see that future.
It's just
seems unreal. It seems unbelievable.
Yeah.
But who knows? Like, things change.
I mean, here, if they ever get if they ever get an Amazon executive in there,
I mean, everything would be on the table. Yeah.
Then someone from there that gets installed into here.
Yeah.
Then we're talking.
Yeah. Well, so I think you touched on things that are an important part of this discussion, because ultimately what people are asking is like, I'm scared about my collection. I'm scared about the purchases I'm making not having value or not being seen as like relevant.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like fear, right? And that's completely understandable. Like we want the things that we love and we want the things that we buy to matter. And that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think there's a couple objective things that are worth pointing out. Just from a standpoint of like, this is just how it is. The first one is they've always done this.
Yep.
There's a reason why for 30 years people called it squatting a range. Mm-hmm. That term comes from one of the first examples of when Games Workshop did this.
Just kind of didn't include them into the next edition.
That's right.
Yeah. Second ed, big release. Third ed doesn't exist. Yeah.
What squats?
What are squats?
What are squats? Yeah. There's we've done a video. You can go back in our catalog, which it's kind of like a silly video where we just kind of like read out silly comments and kind of talk about them.
It's rage bait.
But I start that video just by listing like the most popular things I could think of that went away, and a lot of them came back throughout the years. Mm-hmm. But that feeds into my second point about things that are just objectively true. Is two things. Number one is shelf space in stores is not infinite.
Yep.
And number two, which feeds into that, is the production capacity of Games Workshop is not infinite.
Yep.
So it's unrealistic and unreasonable. If you just say, well, they're going to release 52 new things a year, it's more than that, but just for a number, and my shelf doesn't get bigger, and their production capacity maybe only gets a little bit bigger every year, maybe a 5-10%, something has to go.
Yeah.
Just by the raw objective reality of like, we can't maintain what we're doing and add this many things a year.
I mean, yeah. I mean, car companies can't keep making last year's model. You know, like just it's a thing.
But I think where they're different, right, is hobby something you put time into. And actually, maybe your car analogy, I think actually, I really like that, because what happens with people that have like old cars or classic cars, that's them detaching from the commodification of vehicles, right? They're not chasing the new thing. They're just settling and like it becoming a true hobby that they built on their own. And I think in the miniature world, if these things are causing you a lot of anxiety and fear and whatever, and it's kind of like messing up your hobby, I think that sucks. What you really need to look at is like, why does all the new stuff matter so much to you?
Yeah.
And what is your hobby, and how can you maybe detach a little bit from like how commercialized it's gotten, or how commodified it is, right? And just do what you want to do on your own.
Yeah.
With your friends or whatever. Now, obviously, there's limits to that, right? If you're participating in like a local gaming shop, you like to go to tournaments, that's this type of stuff that's going to pull you along on that road. And that kind of goes against the grain of like finding your own happiness and kind of doing what you like to do. But I think it's just about having that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it with Old World when they killed it initially. Very visceral reactions from everyone.
Of course. Yeah.
That was probably the biggest one that ever has occurred.
Absolutely.
Among their own product lines and games. And what was interesting is that after the initial, 3 months or whatever, and after so many armies got burned, I think then it just kind of like the players just took control, and they were still events at big conventions. People were still sometimes they were playing, even they reverted to editions they whether it was 7th or 6th or whatever, or you had that whole 9th Age movement. Like, people did, just because it left the store, people didn't stop enjoying it, for sure. So it worked out. Obviously, some people, I'm sure there was a scorched earth thing. A bunch of people left the hobby, just died. Their hobby died when that happened, which was unfortunate. I would say the one thing they could do a little better, and because this is detached from the producing the miniatures, so to speak, is they could, and you're kind of seeing it with Neo Old World now, is this like ability to have a game that is like supported or alive, but doesn't have a lot of miniatures, so to speak. So when we look at the Old World now, it's like its commercial success is not anything to do with the minis. No one's buying the minis, really. Like,
a few people, but it's not.
But not in any significant volumes, right? Like, it's the card packs, the books, bases, dice packs. That's where Games Workshop, maybe that's a lesson. Maybe they could look at, like, maybe we don't have to kill or stop producing Stormcast Sacrosanct or something.
Are you saying they could put out an old school 40k classic book or whatever, and resell you your old school games?
Probably. It's kind of working.
On the table.
You could have. I mean, it's kind of Horus Heresy, but you could do it with 40k. You could do it with 40k. You could have, hey, this is editions 3rd through 7th, basically.
The greatest hits.
With Trueborn Marine repacks and whatever. And old-looking, classic-looking models from that era. Like, if Old World can do it, I think 40k can definitely do it. So I think usually, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure the comments will let me know that I think some of the most emotional responses are usually related to the like, but I'm not going to get to use these minis or something like that along those lines.
Yeah.
Because they're so tied to the idea that Games Workshop has to have an official publication to enable me to use this in official sanctioned events. And yeah, that's true, I suppose. Like, yeah, if you want to use the models as intended and they're a Legends War Scroll or whatever, then yeah, you probably won't be able to take that to the World Champs or something. The one that only has like 64 spots for the whole world or whatever. So, but to Chris's point, I think you do have to learn to kind of accept it because it's not going to change. It's like a business facet that is like in rooted into the ground forever. Like
it's the same reason we're nostalgic, and I think this is something maybe like people that are a bit more our age, feel more than people that are newer into the hobby, because like we remember experiences lasting for a lot longer. Like I always go back to like Diablo 2
True.
as like a fundamental pillar of that experience, where it's like it really created a really bad sort of like expectation for every future video game.
Yeah.
It's like, and I've kind of said this to a lot of people when they talk about gaming and experiences and expectations of like value from things, is like, it's kind of ridiculous to expect, what was probably at the time a $60 product to last hundreds of hours for enjoyment, right? Like that's kind of like a crazy expectation for almost anything, right? And I think like ultimately, like even when you look at the hobby, yeah, some Space Marines you bought in the 90s could have lasted for 25 years, right?
I mean, it basically did.
It did, yeah, until they Primarised it, right? But you got like an insane amount of value for that, like ridiculous, right? And this is why I always, when I'm talking to new people getting into the hobby, or even just like pissing in the wind with existing customers that come in, I really try to focus on the like, look, man, if you build these models, like let's talk about just like a regular Space Marine kit. If you build these, take your time painting them, you get to play some games with them. How have you not gotten a ton of value out of that?
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is me being like ignorant or whatever, but like the expectation that thing should have all 100% of its usability and value for all of time is probably not fair.
I mean, again, because the rule set is whatever you want it to be. Like, in theory, it is good for all time.
Yeah,
but
of course.
But you're not. You may. There may be models in your collection that don't have data sheets anymore, and you won't be able to use them in some tournaments. But it is something you have to get around. And so we always try and encourage, and really every time we get new people coming to the store, is to really encourage, hey, like, you should be doing this because you like you want it, the hobby part, and and the fluff and all that, and don't be so caught up in that game part, because that part is.
And it seems to
ephemeral.
It seems to me the people that, and this isn't a shot to anyone who fits into these categories, of course, I'm just broadly generalizing based on my own experience, but it seems to me the people that complete the gaming loop, the cycle of like build, paint, play pretty often, with like, maybe they collect a new army every year, or they, they're always working on something new and finishing it and then starting, those people tend to not worry so much about the changes, because they're excited. They're always excited to do new things because they want to create new projects, because they're doing the hobby. And the people that are, maybe a little bit less active in like the hobby part of it, and have an army for a couple games that they just kind of use or go back to once in a while, those people tend to really worry about the change cycles, because they don't produce as much. They're not able to maybe like flip and turn around and make a new army as fast, based on their own hobby. And they seem more hyper fixated on like, oh man, how long are these going to last? It sucks that I can't use these anymore. So that's something to think about. I think
it is. That is true. And to your point about before, how it used to be slower, it is. Yeah, if you go at a slower pace and you buy a few things a year and You play a couple times a year max, like you are going to feel the
You're gonna
change.
feel it, yeah.
Because an edition isn't 6 years.
It'll feel like you're in hyperspace or whatever, yeah.
You're going to be like, I only used this book twice or something, and I get it. It doesn't feel great when you're like, oh, this thing I bought, I didn't get to use. I don't really have a nice answer for that. It just is.
No. And like I said, we try to be as transparent as possible with people, and like I constantly tell them, like, don't buy the book unless you're playing.
Right.
Like, unless you're going to play.
Yeah.
Or you're planning to play regularly, don't buy the book.
Right.
Because like, going back to the original question this patron asked, that's one of those things you're trying to avoid with that customer, is that negative experience that they will ultimately feel when that book rotates and they haven't used it.
Yeah.
Everyone's experienced that, and that sucks. And you're trying to avoid that happening as much as possible, because that's one of those expected consequences, I guess, of this type of thing. You just
Look, if you buy a thing and you don't use it, it's gonna happen.
I mean, generally with everything that's bad, if you buy food that you don't eat and you throw it out, that's wasteful and terrible, right? So
yeah,
I guess that's
literally any tech.
The general use.
Any tech that you buy.
Question is use what you buy.
Use what you buy, or try
You'll feel good.
Now I will kind of leave with the last kind of like thing, which I think has become just more and more true. Is look, if especially if you're from if you collected stuff a while ago, man, everything comes back around. Like those old world armies are like fire right now. Like because you have stuff, you get to enjoy the old world at maximum capacity right now if you kept some armies. There's lots of people that just are literally like dying for just to try. They have the money and they can't even find the thing they want, right? Whether it's some war machines or other metal kits that are just not available, and also like the value just stays like nothing goes to zero. It just comes back around. So again, like old Space Marines, old this or old that, like this stuff constantly is churning on the secondary market. So I can't stress enough how while Games Workshop's exorbitantly expensive for what it is, it does hold the value. Like so you are never going to get just like rinsed. So you can't say that for a lot of things. Like almost everything.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Almost anything you can think of. It's just like basically, as soon as it's not brand new, it's like in the ground or gets replaced very quickly. So anyway. Yeah. I mean, we just spent 15 minutes and we didn't really answer the question, but I think ultimately the short answer is it does.
It does
a little bit all the time.
Have unexpected and expected consequences. I think there's realities that Games Workshop knows, the hobby shop owners know and understand, and Games Workshop, I'll give them credit. Recently, especially with the Kill Team release, they're trying to be more transparent. Well, that doesn't excuse things. I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying they're being more open about what the expectation is, and I think that's healthy. And then at the local store level, I think it's important that people running those shops are as clear and open with their customers and try to avoid those little pitfalls as much as possible to create a good experience, right? But ultimately, that's up to the shops to do that. So you can't really control that. Only what happens here, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, I hope that helps, and I hope that answers your question. Thanks for the amazing question. If you have questions like this, you have some fun topic ideas, join us on Patreon. It's like a couple bucks a month, and we love to hear your takes and give us some suggestions for videos. We were happy to come up with them on our own, but some of the things you guys have to say are much more interesting. So.
Yeah. We just sit there being like, whatever the heck are we talking about today? All
right, guys. Well, thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.